Happy Friday, everybody. Welcome to a very live edition of This is MLS. Jillian Sakovitz alongside Dax McCarty and Matt Doyle. If you're watching, hi. Thank you for joining us. Please make sure that you like and subscribe to this channel if you haven't already. You can get into the chat. Hold on a second. I am playing This is MLS, so I'm hearing myself twice. Gonna end that right now. As much as you should be watching, I am not somebody who should be watching this show right now. So, Matt Doyle, you are the armchair analyst. And earlier in the week, we had ourselves on the show a Milk Cup attendee. And today, on this show, we raise it a Milk Cup champion in Dax.
I mean, we're bringing it up later in the week. You know, as the week goes along, you start getting the more glamorous hosts onto the show. It's an honor to be in your presence, Dax.
I tell you what, if there's someone who's won some very obscure trophies in his career, this one goes up there. The Milk Cup for sure is up there, as is the Emirates Cup with the New York Red Bulls way back in the day. If you remember, we went over to England and played in the Emirates Cup, somehow lifted the trophy over the likes of Arsenal, PSG. That was fun. But this
was
tournament,
with Thierry, right?
Sure was.
This was a youth tournament in what, like 04?
05. I had to do a little bit of research. This was 05. This was one of the most fun youth national teams I played on. We ended up beating Northern Ireland in the final 4-2. Can you guess, with your infinite wisdom, Mr. Doyle, who scored a hat trick for our team in the final?
That feels like the Chad Barrett era.
Right? That's a really good guess. Really good guess.
Was it Freddie?
It was not Freddie. It was
Josie.
It was you're so close.
Charlie Davies.
So boom, Jill. You are an absolute legend. Well,
you gave Doyle. You're like, Doyle, with all your infinite wisdom, and I'm just sitting here.
It's still coming over here. So that team, our spine down the middle, myself, Charlie up top, and none other than Mr. Lee Wynn providing the service. What a fun team that was to play on. Me getting milk dumped all over me was not a pleasant experience, but I did it for the memes. I did it for the vibes. What a fun tournament that was.
Who's the girls?
No idea.
Good answer.
Dax, that team that won the Milk Cup, you guys then played Messi in the U20 World Cup that summer. You guys actually beat Messi that summer, the only team to beat that Argentina side in the 2005 U20s.
Great point, Doyle. And I would love to say I was part of that U20 team, but I was in 2007 in Canada. But yes, that team did end up beating Messi in the tournament. I believe Argentina went on to win it.
They did.
We're going to talk a lot about Messi in this show because here's what we have for you today. Messi Magic, per usual, leading an MLS side to their first ever Club World Cup victory. And after the biggest upset of the competition so far, that means that the Seattle Sounders are still alive in the group of death. And we're going to end the show looking at the MLS top jerseys. Some of them you can probably guess, and some will surprise you. So let's start with the Club World Cup. We've got two MLS teams officially have played game 2 of their group stage yesterday. And Dax, it was the first CONCACAF team to ever beat a UEFA team. Is this the biggest result in Inter Miami's history?
Depends on the context, Jill. Inter Miami? No. The biggest result in their history, you never forget your first. It was the Leagues Cup victory. And I don't care that some people don't like Leagues Cup or skeptical of Leagues Cup. Okay, whatever. I played in that first iteration of Leagues Cup, and it was one of the most chaotic, unhinged tournaments that you could ever have. But the players cared. And this was, I know every game was played in the U.S., but you constantly had this dichotomy of big brother versus little brother in MLS. And it felt like the tournament being at home really evened the playing field for MLS teams. I had the, I guess, distinct honor or displeasure of having to play against Lionel Messi in that.
That's what I thought you were going to lead with.
Final. Yeah. And listen, I think if you ask Messi, he would be very proud of beating myself in the final. But at the end of the day, you never forget your first trophy. Lionel Messi exploded onto the scene with Inter Miami, made tons of memories. That was his first tournament on Doyle. If you remember, a really bad Inter Miami team who wasn't even in the stratosphere for the playoffs. They go on a pretty historic run. They beat us in penalties in Nashville, one of the best atmospheres still to this day I had ever experienced or played in. Shout out to everyone in Nashville who made it so special. But in the context of Inter Miami, their first trophy is going to be the most important result in their club history. Maybe when they win MLS Cup, that's going to pip it. If they somehow win the Club World Cup, then I will certainly eat my words. But in the greater context of Inter Miami on a global stage representing MLS, that's the biggest result for an MLS team, I'd say, in MLS history. You'd have to go to Seattle Sounders, obviously being the first team to win the CONCACAF Champions Cup. There's a lot of nuance here, but hats off to Inter Miami. It was a wonderful performance, one of their best performances in their history. Very proud of them and all of MLS. And look, that's an FC Porto team that is well respected on a global stage.
Jill, you said it, the first win for a CONCACAF side against a UEFA team in any official competition. Obviously, it's happened before in friendlies, but who cares about friendlies? It's been 15 meetings, and it's not just MLS. We're talking the best that Liga MX has had to offer over the past quarter century, and nobody's ever gotten it done. Now, Necaxa did beat Real Madrid on penalties 25 years ago in the Intercontinental Cup, but that's a different thing. Any match that goes to penalties is officially recorded as a draw. So this is the first official win for a North American team over a European team in official competition against a team like Porto, who, as Dax just said, super well-respected side, even though they didn't play particularly well in this game, which I think we'll be getting into in a second here. It's a landmark moment for the league. It is yet more proof of concept for Lionel Messi and the project in Inter Miami. Me personally, like, the most gratifying part about it was watching three homegrown players who come through that Miami academy start in this game. All three played really well. I thought Noah Allen was a little hard done by in that early penalty against him. Ian Frey in particular in the middle of that back line. Let's hope he's healthy to go against Palmeiras, because he's a difference maker for that side. They checked every box that I wanted to see, basically. And it's a big moment, and people are celebrating the hell out of it, and they should be.
Doyle, where does it rank, though, in Miami wins for you? Do you need a trophy for it to be the biggest win?
I think you do. I think this is you think about this the way you think about the Cruz Azul game in that Leagues Cup that Dax was talking about, where it was Messi's first game with Inter Miami, and he comes off the bench and he turns a loss into a win in the way that only Messi can, with a free kick that we saw kind of a mirror image of yesterday against Porto. Like, I'll remember that one forever. Like, he hit the league like a thunderbolt. It was incredible. And up until he beat Dax in Nashville, that was the biggest win in Inter Miami history. This one is not going to top that, because he lifted a trophy after that Leagues Cup win. That's why it's not the entire reason people play the game, but like, that's the goal, is to lift trophies, and nobody's lifted more than Messi. I'd also maybe put it behind the win over Columbus last year that basically sealed the Supporter Shield for them, because that was a big moment too. But it's certainly in the pantheon. And just for the sake of credibility on the world stage, MLS badly needed a win like this over a club like Porto. And I'm glad we got it out of the way, and hopefully we won't have to wait so long for the next one.
Dax, where did that Messi strike rank for you in the goals that we've seen from him since he came to MLS?
The one against Nashville or the one against Porto? Because I remember the one against Nashville pretty well.
Oh, the one that freak. Doyle, stop giving me PTSD.
Stop getting in his head. We got 50 more minutes to go through, Doyle.
That goal ranks in the top 3 of moments in Inter Miami history for Lionel Messi. And you could see what it means to him. What I love about Messi is that he has come over to MLS. He's not just coasting. He is. You see why he's the greatest player of all time, because he cares deeply about what happens with this club, almost to a point of being criticized for sometimes having slightly negative body language, going at referees. And I would rather have a Lionel Messi who cared deeply about his legacy is secure, but he cares deeply about his legacy in Major League Soccer. He wants to win. He wants to be remembered as transformational in Major League Soccer history. And that goal is just the cherry on top of what's otherwise been a fantastic run of form for him since he's gotten to Miami. His goal in the Leagues Cup final is probably still, for him, I would say, one of the best goals that he scored for Inter Miami because of what it meant. And it was also a ridiculous goal. And Doyle referenced his free kick against Cruz Azul, which was the other goal that I wanted to reference as being memorable. I think the only other goal that you can say that is above that goal for an introduction to MLS is Zlatan's goal in El Tráfico. Messi showing up off the bench against a Liga MX powerhouse, scoring a free kick with millions of eyeballs on that game because of the reach of Apple and the deal and everything that it meant. I think that you're going to be hard-pressed to find a more significant goal that Lionel Messi has scored unless it comes in, say, an MLS Cup final. So definitely scored some memorable ones, but man, those goals are just... and also, by the way, goalkeepers, can you please just stay on your side, okay? If you're going to let the greatest player of all time get a sniff of not just going over the wall, but also getting beat on your side, maybe just choose to stay on your side. And if he puts it over the wall into the top corner, you just tip your cap. All right, stop cheating. He's going to put it in the strong side.
Second best. That was the second best goal in the game. Let's give Talasco Segovia his due because I will always choose a well-worked, well-constructed team goal over a banger. And Messi has obviously had his share of bangers. But what Miami did to bring it back to 1-1 collectively through that first goal was incredible. And it came from what we were talking about on Wednesday, Jill, when Brad was on and we were saying, like, Messi needs to be more of a midfielder. He can't just be an attacker against these teams. He has to drop in and give Miami some pitch control through central midfield. And if you look at that sequence of play, that's exactly what happened. Messi dropped in and he's combining with Busquets, and suddenly they're able to open up the entire Porto left side. A great overlap. I think it was Allende who had the final ball across the box. And that run right there to get onto the end of that's part of why I love Segovia so much. Like, he has been such an impressive kid so far in his first year in the league.
And I love what Derek Richards said in the chat, saying, aside from this, only Seattle's, at the time, CONCACAF Champions League, now CONCACAF Champions Cup win bigger for the league. You agree?
I'm old enough to remember DC United's win over Vasco da Gama back in 1998 in the Inter-American Cup, which unfortunately has gone away. But like that Vasco team was a wagon. Like, that was a great team. They were the defending Copa Libertadores champions, and DC United beat them over 2 legs. And that DC United team, if you drop them down in the MLS playoffs this year, they would compete. So. That's the top tier for me, those 3.
And by the way, Doyle rightly hit on Segovia's goal. We talked about Messi's goal. None of these things, in my opinion, would have mattered if it wasn't for something that happened in the first half. Probably the play of the game for Inter Miami, given the context of how bad they've been defensively. They're already losing 1-0. Maxi Falcone saves a ball, a surefire goal off the line that would have made it 2-0 Porto. Man, we have to give some credit to the Inter Miami backline and Oscar Ustari, who, for the most part, has been abysmal in Major League Soccer play, but has been very good in this tournament. Inter Miami, as a collective, defensively, that has to be what they are if they want to continue to pile on good result after good result, because Messi, he can come up with moments of magic at any time. It won't matter if they're conceding 3 or 4 goals. Maxi Falcone, easily the biggest play in his Inter Miami career, maybe in his whole career, I'm not too sure, but that save off the line absolutely was the catalyst for Inter Miami to mount a comeback in the second half.
Well, that and the fact that they were able to get pressure to the ball through central midfield. And I think a big part of that is, I'm not sure it's going to be a permanent switch, but Javier Mascherano made the right call in chopping Federico Redondo for Ben-Hak Gramovsky.
Agreed.
And that because Gramovsky just has better range. I think he has better sort of more dynamic defensive instincts in terms of getting immediate pressure to the ball. And that's let Sergio Busquets, or yesterday anyway, it let Sergio Busquets just be an orchestrator again instead of having to put out fires. And when Busquets can orchestrate, he can actually make things happen. Too much of this year, he's been forced to just chase the game. And then I thought the fullbacks were also very good until, unfortunately, Vegan, who I've never been a fan of, he got injured, and that changed sort of the shape of the game a little bit for Miami, and I ended up, I think, chasing a little bit the last 15 minutes. But collectively, they were on the same page, and they were tough, right? They weren't as gappy, easy to play against as they've been this year. And Porto had no answers for it, and that was a shock, I think, to anybody who was watching. Certainly was a shock to me. I thought Porto would walk out 3 or 4-1 winners in this one.
Yeah, and Miami now not only still alive, but with a chance to win Group A when they take on Palmeiras in the third game of this group stage. And as for the poll, guys, while I respect both of your opinions immensely, the good people of the internet say yes, 80% of them, in fact, that it was Miami's biggest win in history. So do with that what you will. Let's head out west, shall we? Again, I feel like I keep saying this, an okay performance by the Seattle Sounders, who did get a goal, but they were up against Atletico Madrid, who won it 3-1. How satisfied, Doyle, should the Sounders be at this point with their Club World Cup performances despite 0 points?
I mean, I think they should be pretty satisfied with the way they've played. If they bring that form into MLS, they're going to win a lot of games over the second half of the season and maybe have a trophy to show for it, because that's the level they've been playing at, especially through midfield. There are questions to be asked in attack, but that's not a surprise. It's still not clear exactly what the best front four is for this team, though Albert Rusnak will be a part of it. The other part, I think that had to be really heartening for the Sounders, was like, okay, Nuhu finally played him out of Brian Schmetzer's good graces, right? That foul he committed in the first half against Botafogo was inexcusable, and he got dropped at halftime. Reed Baker-Whiting played well in that game. Reed Baker-Whiting thrown into the deep end against Atletico Madrid, one of the 3 best teams in Spain, one of the 15 best teams in the world. There were struggles. First 20, 25 minutes, he struggled pretty badly. He's still not a natural defender, but he came into the game and he played without fear. And that is a huge bridge to cross for any young player, to do it on that stage in front of that crowd with those stakes. I think it's a big moment. I think the Sounders come away with that. And Kosa Rienzi on the other side, who was playing in the Pac-12 a couple of years ago. These are kids growing up in real time, and Obed Vargas as well. So just checking so many boxes. They're in good shape, I think, going into the rest of the season. And now all they need is a simple 4-0 win over PSG, and probably through to the knockouts. Easy.
So you're saying
Easy.
There's a chance.
It's light work, Jill. No problem.
Listen, I'm at the point where with Seattle, the results unfortunately have gone how everyone predicted, which is not a slight on Seattle. What I wanted to see and where I would have taken the most heart if I'm Seattle fans or Brian Schmetzer is in the performances. Seattle hasn't sat on top of their own box. They haven't bunkered in. They've created plenty of chances. Against Atletico Madrid, I know Atletico Madrid had a couple chances here and there, which is why you have a Stefan Fryen goal to save you in those crucial moments when you need him to, which he did. And then on the other side, Seattle, they didn't test the goalkeeper enough. That is my biggest criticism of Seattle. And Jan Oblak is a great goalkeeper. But Seattle, there were so many what-if moments for me. Moments of great play through pressure where they were high up the field, lose the ball, repress, great mentality, and you created a couple of half chances and some really good chances that, I tell you what, Doyle, if you've got a prime Raul Ruidiaz up top, if you've got an Obafemi Martins
how about
up top,
just a healthy Jordan Morris, man?
Maybe a healthy Jordan Morris with the way that he's played. But listen, with all due respect to the GOAT, Danny Musovski, right? His magic and his juice has run out a little bit. He had a moment in the first half where he had a chance that Oblak saved, but Seattle will be very proud. And the fans, Seattle Sounders fans, should be very proud of how Seattle has handled themselves in these first 2 games. You might have a rude awakening coming in the last group game against a very motivated Paris Saint-Germain Champions League winner team. But man, I've been so impressed with Seattle. They should take a lot of heart out of these performances. If they play like they have against Botafogo and Atletico Madrid, they are going to rocket up the Western Conference table. It would not surprise me at all if they ended up winning the West, as long as they play like this.
And one of the other things about this tournament, the Club World Cup, that's been just captivating people, whether it's on TV or it's on social media, are the scenes that you see across. In Botafogo, they were showing that when they pulled off this upset that I want to discuss in a minute over the reigning Champions League winners in Paris Saint-Germain, Rio looked like Rio maybe every night since it's Rio, but people were celebrating like it was a World Cup. Yeah. You see how much it means. Antoine Griezmann with Atleti, going up to the fans, the Sounders fans. I think we have that video for you. And you just see what it means to the people. This is maybe their only chance. I mean, unless he comes to MLS, but this is maybe their only chance to see a guy like Griezmann. And it's been a real highlight for me in this tournament.
Agreed, Joe. But this is what tournaments like this are all about. I think I care because people care. People care about.
Look at those kids jumping up and down, Doyle. Yeah. Come on.
Teach those kids to jump up and down for the Sounders. That's what this tournament. No, I'm serious. That's what this tournament is about for me. Like I'm sick of the hero worship of the European players. They're great. It's still the best soccer in the world, but like. Culturally, we need more of those kids to care about our local teams. And hopefully some of those kids begging for Antoine Griezmann's autograph before this one, or begging for Christian Roldan's or Obed Vargas's.
Yeah, but Doyle, that's the point, though. That's the point, because if you're an Atletico Madrid fan who otherwise wouldn't care about Seattle, even though they're in your own backyard, maybe you go to the game and you say, wait a minute, Seattle Sounders are pretty damn good. I probably should get a ticket to another game. So to your point, 100% agree. The Euro worship it gets tired pretty quickly. But I will say, if it gets more people into the stadium, if it gets more people eyeballs on what they have in their own backyard, listen, no one says that you can't support Atletico Madrid and all their players and also the team in your backyard. So as long as it's getting more people in stadiums and you get more eyeballs on your local teams, to see an Obed Vargas, who maybe you can then say, hey, I want to be like Obed Vargas. I want to go play for the Seattle Sounders, and then maybe I'll realize my dream of playing for Atletico Madrid down the line. I'm
like kind of low-key envisioning Doyle as my dad for a second. Be like, Dad, I want a Messi jersey, or him be like, no, you will not. You will not have a Messi jersey. You will have a Nuhu jersey. Okay.
Not anymore.
Yeah,
it's a now.
Nuhu has brought me enough happy moments as just an MLS stan that I can get past Nuhu's last performance in the first game. I can totally get over that. I just want to point this out. We saw the first true upset of the tournament when Brazilian side Botafogo beat Paris Saint-Germain 1-0. The group of death, Doyle, at this point, heading into match day 3, is still very much alive.
Yeah, I mean, Botafogo's basically through. It would be a shock if they're not one of the teams that advances. That said, it's still on. Like, technically, all 4 teams can advance. If Botafogo beat Atletico Madrid and the Sounders, like I said, all they have to do is beat PSG by 4, then the Sounders would go through to the group stage or to the knockout rounds with 3 points. It seems very unlikely to me. If I were a wagering man, I would wager against it. It's certainly a fun thing to think about for the next couple of days before the game is actually played.
I said before the tournament, success looks like just giving yourself a chance in that third game. Seattle Sounders, congratulations. You have a chance in your third game. Go have some fun.
And of course, it's a tall task for the Sounders, but I think the emphasis here is the fact that when everybody looked at this group, it was just Atleti through, PSG through, and we're seeing that that's very much not the case. And we're talking about legendary teams. I want to talk about legendary managers, okay? I am so here for the matchup that is Brian Schmetzer going up against Diego Simeone, because whether Diego Simeone knows it or not, I hope you're listening, you are going up against the Diego Simeone in a lot of ways of Major League Soccer. Brian Schmetzer, an absolute Seattle club legend. He's been part of it for decades, managed the first team since 2016. Diego Simeone, also the longest tenured manager in his league, La Liga, going on 15 seasons in charge. So it begs the question, if you could take one manager from this Club World Cup and put them in MLS, who are you taking and on what team?
Doyle, you want me to go first? I've got a pretty clear, obvious answer.
Yes.
I'm taking the low-hanging fruit here.
Go for it, buddy.
The easiest, the most logical, best answer is none other than Mr. Pep Guardiola. You have him in the City Football Group family already. Yeah, go sign a superstar to open your brand new, state-of-the-art, beautiful stadium in the five boroughs of New York. It's going to be historic. Go sign a big star. But guess what? Sign an even bigger star. That's what Pep Guardiola is. He is one of the biggest stars in world football. You have him under your umbrella already. He'll probably win another league title with Man City. Bring him in to open your beautiful stadium. He'll coach for 4 or 5 years. Maybe he'll win an MLS Cup. I don't know. I would love to see him at the MLS Super Draft and see who he would decide to take out of college that went to the University of North Carolina. All right? I would love to see him scouting college players. But then after 5 or 6 years in Manhattan, he loves the life. Fun story, I actually ran into him at a New York Knicks game with me and Ryan Mira. And Pep was so gracious. He was so kind. Talked to us for 10, 15 minutes. Might have shared an adult beverage. And he was very adamant about seeing Thierry Henry and wanting to reconnect with him. So that was a fun story, but I know he loves the lifestyle in the United States. After he coaches NYCFC for 5 or 6 years, go coach the U.S. men's national team, lead Kevin Sullivan and our great nation to our first World Cup. How about that?
Oh, wow.
Doyle, top that. Doyle.
I like that Dax has the fanfic all written out. It's perfect. No, Pep was my answer too. For all the reasons Dax said, like if you're going to be ambitious in opening up that stadium down the road from me, in a couple of years, Pep would be a great manager to have sort of ring in the new year with them. Just philosophically, he's my answer because no coach has been more influential on the game of soccer in the last 50 years than Pep Guardiola. He basically rewrote the meta in terms of how teams play, what they're supposed to look like, how you want to build from the back, especially. It's been so powerful and so successful. He was even able to change England, who didn't know how to play. They invented the game and then couldn't figure out how to play it for 130 years until Pep arrived, 8 years ago in Manchester. And the knock on him for the entirety of his coaching career is, he could only do it with the best. Whether it was Barcelona or Bayern Munich or Manchester City, like the way he wants to play the game, it only works if you have the very best players in the world. And I suspect there's some truth to that. But we also saw a Pep Guardiola disciple in Dome Tarrant, who is also managing in this tournament, have a lot of success over a couple of years in MLS. And I would love to see both those guys return and institute their style of soccer in MLS and do it within a more even playing field, frankly, than what either of them have had to deal with in Europe and now in Mexico for Dome. So bring them both back. It's like an A-B sort of scientific test. Let's see how it works with both these guys in a league of relative parity compared to what they're used to.
Dome Tarrant, of course, managing with Monterrey's side. Before we move on to my pick, and the chat is seemingly agreeing with me, and they don't even know it yet, I have to ask, Pep Guardiola, sure, it makes sense, City Football Group, all that. If you were going to say on a scale of 1 to 10, 10 being a sure thing, 1 being no chance, what do you think the odds are we see Pep in MLS one day, 1 to 10?
I feel it's like a 7 or an 8.
I would say like a 5. I'm a little bit more skeptical, just depending on how I don't know. I mean, depending on how burned out he is after all these, travails throughout Europe and coaching as long as he has. I mean, I could see him pulling a Jurgen Klopp and saying, just going to take a little bit of a break. And then maybe that break turns into a 10-year break where he's like, nope, I'm out. I've won enough. But I think it's definitely a possibility. I wouldn't be as confident as Doyle. But everything seems to kind of fall in line,
Yeah, I think he's. Who I'm picking?
Go ahead, Jill.
You guys don't care. You don't care what I say. You don't care
what
I think.
Absolutely. I hope you say what ALVP NYC said, because I think that's a
and our guy Henry Manuel, Luis Enrique. I'd go with him not only because he just had an epic Champions League win with Paris Saint-Germain when they won 5-0 in Bayern a couple weeks back, but I love the vibes. Have you guys been following their training out in California? I didn't totally know what was going on when I saw it, but he has no shoes on. He has Tito Villalba level roll up of the shorts. And I looked it up, and he's like into this grounding where you like connect with the earth and everything like that. Exactly. Vanni Sartini is not the parallel that I'm going for here, but from like a philosophical standpoint, I love everything about it. And I think we could use not only a Champions League winner, but I love the personality that would bring. Did you ever have a manager walk around as bare-skinned as that, Dax, at training?
I did not. I did not have the pleasure of that. I guess the closest I got would be like a Gary Smith in Nashville with his shirt sleeves rolled up, hitting the bag. Quite the boxer Gary Smith was.
Oh yeah.
That kind of looks like me on my off days, walking around the beaches.
Yeah, you tan like that.
Although I'm not as tan. I was going to say I don't tan. I just get pink. So listen. Lather up with the sunscreen. But yeah, Jill, it's a great shout with Luis Enrique. The other person that was said in the chat by ALVP NYC was Marcelo Gallardo,
yes.
Who we all know, obviously, with his time in MLS, what a fun player to watch. I haven't followed his coaching career as closely, but if it's anything, if he coaches anything like
legendary. Legendary.
Sure.
I think he's officially the most successful coach in River Plate history.
Wow.
So,
okay.
Yeah.
So, I also played with his son at Atlanta United, who is an absolutely wonderful, technically gifted, left-footed player. I would love to see Gallardo back in MLS. It's a great shout.
And also, Gallardo is one of the few DC United players who had a shorter tenure with the team than you did.
That's rare.
Yeah, that's rare.
How long exactly was it, Dax?
About five months or so.
Okay.
Yeah, just a little cup of coffee. Nothing crazy.
Well, Maisel the drummer has the perfect segue for us, saying LAFC must win today, nothing less. So I want to discuss LAFC's game over Tunisian side, club coming over here for the Club World Cup. I think when you looked at the schedule ahead for the group stage, this was the biggest game that was supposed to be a shoo-in 3 points for an MLS side. How much pressure do you think there is on LAFC and Steve Cherundolo to get 3 points today at Geodis Park?
I think it's a ton. As you said, like this is the one match on the schedule for the three MLS teams where it's like, oh, the MLS side is a clear favorite here. And that's no disrespect to ES Tunis, but it's just factual. And then you look at how well Chelsea or LAFC played against Chelsea, and it's like, okay, if they bring that to this game, then they will probably walk out with all 3 points. But here's a problem, Dax. Against Chelsea, LAFC were able to sort of absorb and then hit on the break. And they got their chances doing that. There were a couple times where they could have equalized, made it 1-1. Mm-hmm. Against this team, they're going to have to carry play. They're going to have to break them down with the ball, and that is just not their strong suit.
Correct. And it's a good point, Doyle. I was going to make that point, but obviously we're on the same wavelength. I just wonder if this is a game for Olivier Giroud.
Don't we keep saying that, though? I feel like we keep saying that.
We do, Jill, but here's the thing. Olivier Giroud has been nothing but a top professional since he has come to MLS. The results in his performances on the field have been under par. That's why he's on the bench. That's why you have a Nathan Ordaz and a Jeremy Abobasi who is preferred to an Olivier Giroud. But in a game like this, against a team which Doyle rightly pointed out, that LAFC should feel pressure because they are the favorite. They need to go and win this game, and they need to win this game convincingly. You are not going to have the luxury of a Tunis team who is going to carry possession and dominate you with the ball. So LAFC needs to come up with other solutions. They need to have more solutions than just transition. You need to be able to get the ball out wide, get the ball in the box to Olivier Giroud. That might open up some space underneath for midfielders who are, quite frankly, not as creative. Right? Mark Delgado, Tim Tillman, they're very good players. They're very good box-to-box midfielders, but they don't pick locks. They're eights. Yeah. And so you need to really rely on your fullbacks. Ryan Hollingshead, Sergi Palencia, get out wide. Denny Bouanga, keep those wingers a little bit more narrow to really flood the box. And Olivier Giroud, this is what they brought you in for. Have your moment in the sun, right? Because it hasn't been all beautiful for him. I'm sure it's been a disappointment on his end. This is your moment to really put your stamp, kind of like a little bit similar to a Gareth Bale and what he was able to do in MLS Cup. Obviously, there's levels to this, and there's a big difference. But Olivier Giroud, you're a wonderful professional. Go and make your mark on the LAFC team in history. Win this game. Give yourselves a chance to advance out of the group.
And remember your shirt.
I don't think that's his job.
Or not. And I don't care who you are, everybody. That's like the only person you could say that about. Because like everybody just agrees with that. If he's starting, the guy's going to remember his shirt. Let's be real. Okay. Anything else on LAFC or Olivier Giroud?
I just hope we're talking about David Martinez the same way that we were talking about Ben Hakramaski and Obed Vargas
Segovia.
After those games, Segovia as well. Because it's like he had a few moments against Chelsea where he was in, and the last touch just failed him. And I think he's got the talent to kind of blow up and to maybe go out there and win a game. And this would be a great time for him to do it.
What's the score?
3-1 LAFC.
That's really high scoring. I'm going to say 1-0. I think they get it done. I think they get it done off a set piece.
You know who got it done off a set piece yesterday?
Oh, that's a good segue, Jill.
The U.S. men's national team, who are now a perfect 2-4-2 in the 2025 Gold Cup, getting themselves a spot in the quarterfinals with yesterday's 1-0 victory over Saudi Arabia at Q2 Stadium. Thank you to a Sebastian Berhalter corner kick that found the foot of Chris Richards. And there's really few guys on that team that I'd love to see celebrate the way that Chris Richards does. He's kind of stealing my heart. I think he might be my close second right now to Diego Luna. So I want to ask you guys, when you look at yesterday's performance against a tougher opponent in Saudi Arabia than, of course, Trinidad and Tobago was, I want to get who you think the top three players that have impressed Mauricio Pochettino so far. And Dax, we'll start with you.
Yeah, Jill, one of those players you mentioned scored an absolutely fantastic goal. Chris Richards off of a wide free kick service from Sebastian Berhalter. Chris Richards, he is number one on my list. I've been waiting for him to have his breakout U.S. national team moment. It is coming in this Gold Cup. He is a written in pen starter for me at this moment right now for the U.S. men's national team. There's not a center back in the pool that I think even comes close to being able to hit his ceiling. It's great to see him really start to marry his performances with Crystal Palace with the U.S. men's national team, because he always let me down in terms of he couldn't quite hit the heights of his Crystal Palace performances with the U.S. men's national team. This is his backline. And right behind him is a very important position with Matt Freese, who I think has so much to gain. He's already gained the trust of Mauricio Pochettino. Matt Turner, a little bit inconsistent, obviously not getting many games at the club level. I think that this is great for not just Matt Turner, but Matt Freese as well, who's in great form in MLS play. You need someone pushing Matt Turner. Matt Freese can be the guy. I think he's got a ton to gain if he starts the rest of this Gold Cup and is successful. And then Malik Tillman, a pretty kind of an enigma for me, a little bit of an anomaly in terms of how talented I know he is playing for PSV. But then also with the national team, a lot like Chris Richards, I've been waiting for him to really step up. Obviously against a bad Trinidad team, he scores 2 goals. He's very active. I still think that with the attack of the U.S. men's national team and the uncertainty around Gio Reyna, I want a creative midfielder on the field. I think he probably has an edge right now on Diego Luna because Tillman's playing centrally. Diego Luna's playing out on the left, inverted. I would think that competition between Luna and Tillman to maybe be that difference maker off the bench is going to be a fierce competition. I think those are the 3 players that have impressed Pochettino.
I'm gonna push back on Malik Tillman. So I thought that, like, obviously he did really well to score those 2 goals against Trinidad and Tobago, and he was up for the fight against Saudi Arabia, and that's what impressed me most because he was not a creative midfielder yesterday. He was not able to pick a lot anytime. I don't think of him as a number 10. He's a box arriving midfielder. He adds value with his goal scoring, but he's never going to be a Gio Reyna replacement. He's never going to be a guy who can conduct the attack. So while I think he's helped himself, I just don't envision him as a guy who's going to be sort of the force magnifier that you kind of look for from that
And to be fair to Tillman Doyle, the entire U.S. men's national team attacking core against Saudi Arabia didn't look good. It was a very disciplined, tactically astute performance from Saudi Arabia, if not a little bit cynical. So I don't think anyone could really look good in the attacking third. And I agree with you that it's not a like-for-like replacement in terms of creativity. I just like the pockets of space that he finds, his ability to arrive in the box late. And I think if the U.S. men's national team is going to build around Christian Pulisic being that creative hub, depending on where Pochettino wants to play him, you need more players to arrive in the box. That's what I like about Tillman, is that there are times when the U.S. men's national team, they have some great build-up play, some great wing play, and then you get into the box and it's one striker and nobody else. I do like that about Tillman, and that's why I think Pochettino has him on the field.
My three, I agree with Dax 100% about Chris Richards. And I said a month ago on this show, my biggest question mark, my biggest worry for the national team is who's going to be the center backs, because as talented as Chris Richards is and as good as he's been with Crystal Palace, he never showed it for the national team. And over 180 minutes, he has. Now, there needs to be a bigger sample size, but I'm really heartened, especially by the toughness that he showed against Saudi Arabia, because that's something that had been missing from him. He had not been willing to impose himself on the game, and he did. And that matters to me a lot.
Maturity to his game, right?
It's a nastiness. It's not just maturity. It's the willingness to meet the emotional moment, which he had always been kind of tentative about, in my opinion. And the U.S. needed that last night, and they got that from him. They also got some of that from Alex Freeman. He had a couple of bozo moments, right? He misplayed a couple of balls, and he wasn't entirely comfortable in his distribution in the first half in this new role that Pochettino is playing for him. But he never looked out of his depth. And then once he got a chance to push forward in the second half, as Poch made some tactical tweaks, I thought he made such a difference, playing the ball in behind, combining, opening up the left side of that Saudi defense. And he creates the sort of downhill momentum in attack that the U.S. just does not get from the other right back options other than Serginho Dest. And hopefully we get a fully healthy Serginho Dest starting the next time that the U.S. are in camp. And then the third one is Sebastian Berhalter, because his set piece delivery is ridiculous. The ball that he put in for the Chris Richards goal was great. But on top of that, he's been a better ball winner through 2 games than I expected of him, because that's not really his role with the Whitecaps. He has Andres Cubas protecting him back there in front of that back line in Vancouver, so he gets to roam a little bit more. On this one, he was actually the one doing most of the protecting, not just sort of hunting transition moments. I thought he was really good. He checks his shoulder more than anybody in the player pool, so he always knows what's going on around him, and that gives him a little bit of an edge in these tight moments when the U.S. are trying to play out. Though it was not smooth sailing the first half hour of that game, but that's okay.
It was not.
That's what happens, right? You go up a level, you go up to international play, and the intensity gets ratcheted up, and you see who sinks and who swims. And I thought that by about the half-hour mark, Sebastian Berhalter was swimming.
And you grind out a win against a tougher opponent in Saudi Arabia at a very hot Q2 stadium last night. That in-swinger free kick from Berhalter was a thing of beauty, and it got me thinking. We've seen it so many times now with the Vancouver Whitecaps, but Dax, you were just talking about guys tearing it up for their clubs, and it's not always translating. Chris Richards, right? He wins an FA Cup with Crystal Palace. Maybe that gives him this extra nastiness, this extra maturity, perhaps. But I know we wanted to see Berhalter do well in this camp, but are you surprised how well so far his Vancouver Whitecaps form has translated into the national team?
Not really. I'm not really surprised at all, for all the reasons that Doyle mentioned. Berhalter is the type of kid who, to be honest, he reminds me of myself a little bit in terms of the mentality I had to have when I was trying to make the U.S. men's national team. I don't think Sebastian Berhalter is going to be, at any point in time during his career, a heavily relied upon U.S. men's national team player, but I think that he has a role to play. Doyle mentioned his set-piece delivery. I've been longing for the days where I see consistent set-piece delivery in the U.S. men's national team to get back to using that as such a weapon. If we can weaponize our set pieces again, that's just another check mark to where we can get back to, I think, a place where it's something that we will have an advantage of over most opponents. And so I love what Sebastian Berhalter is doing. I think his mentality is elite. I think that his physical limitations are there, but he also has a soccer brain. I love players with a soccer brain that solve problems on the field. And the pace of play at the very highest level at the international game, it might be a little bit too much for him, but I certainly think that there's a role for him moving forward with the national team.
This was the first time in the Mauricio Pochettino era that we saw him go back-to-back with his starting 11s. Do you see any of these players from these starting 11s against Trinidad and Tobago and Saudi Arabia at the World Cup in the first game? Yes or no?
Yes.
Yeah.
Chris Richards will be in that starting 11.
Okay.
Chris Richards. It wouldn't shock me if Alex Freeman was.
Yeah.
Number 9 and goalkeeper are still wide open. And Pat Agiman had some good moments, had some not so great moments, but he's been the most consistent goal scorer of anybody in the pool. Goals matter. Diego Luna is very obviously a favorite of Pochettino for a lot of reasons.
Pushing back on that a little bit, Doyle. Brian White is easily the most consistent goal scorer in the camp right now. I think
there are just physical levels that I don't think Brian White was able to bring to bear against Switzerland.
I was at the game in Nashville, and Brian White struggled mightily, and it was one of the worst games I've actually seen him play.
Striker and goalkeeper, guys, we're going to save for another day because I know the runaway train that this could become.
I know, Adjuman. I see the potential. He leaves me wanting more always.
Okay. Well, there is one sure thing when it comes to striker, and that's on Canada's side, or to forward rather, in Jonathan David, right? 25 goals scored this season for Lille, Canada's leading goal scorer at 34, linked to a number of potential Premier League teams next season. So I have to ask, does that mean Jonathan David is the best player in CONCACAF?
No.
He
is not the best player in CONCACAF. He's the best striker in CONCACAF, but unfortunately for all the Canadians out there, all the Mexicans that might be watching, Christian Pulisic is still the best player in CONCACAF. His track record speaks for itself. Forget about all the drama surrounding the U.S. men's national team right now in this moment. Christian Pulisic is at the height of his powers. He's just now entering his prime with the amount of experience that he has under his belt. Talking about a guy who's won trophies in Germany. We're talking about a guy who's won the Champions League. And we're talking about a guy who plays at one of the biggest clubs in the world. Forget about the fact that AC Milan is a little bit of a dumpster fire right now. Christian Pulisic has established himself as a top 3 player at one of the best, top 10 most well-known clubs in Europe with the history to back it up. He needs to take his game to another level in order to continue to raise the bar and get AC Milan back to Champions League football, back to challenging for the Scudetto. But as far as accomplishments, talent, marrying that all together, Christian Pulisic is still the best player in CONCACAF.
Dax, when was the last time Christian Pulisic was the best player on the field in a U.S. national team game?
Hard to say. To say because it's been a minute. Because it's been a minute. I agree.
I would take Alphonso Davies on one leg over Christian Pulisic, given how great Alphonso Davies has been. I know he's rehabbing that ACL tear. I hope when he comes back, he is 100%. If he is, there's just no question who the best player in the region is. It's Alphonso Davies.
Hard to disagree with Doyle there, but I will say the injury factored into my decision a little bit.
Are we sure that Jonathan
we're
David...
in the moment right now.
Are we sure that Jonathan David is better than our guy Tani Oluwaseyi? Because
he's
a breakout player.
That's a spicy take right there.
And that's
he was
why
awesome.
That's why you make bucks, Doyle. Here's somebody who loves a spicy take or two. Jesse Marsch, manager of the U.S. Canadian, U.S. Oh my God, not manager.
Careful, Jill. Don't wade into politics.
Manager of the Canadian national team, Jesse Marsch, suspended the first 2 games of the Gold Cup. He is not on the sidelines managing his team due to his antics a few months back during Nations League. Yet Doyle, he finds himself in trouble yet again, and the man is not even on the sideline.
Yeah, so the report is he was in a suite watching the game, which is standard operating procedure for guys who are suspended with a red card, be it a coach or a player. We see it all the time. And before the game, the CONCACAF officials said you can watch the game from this suite. And then in, I guess, the middle of the first half, a different CONCACAF official showed up and said, you have to leave. You're not supposed to be watching the game. You're not supposed to be, I think, in the stadium even. That was the report I saw out of Christian Jack, which, that's insane. Like that, this is not a Jesse Marsch thing this time. This is a CONCACAF thing. But what might be a Jesse Marsch thing, or maybe a Canadian soccer thing, Canada also reportedly had too many technical staff on the sideline during the game. I cannot suss that one out. Dax, it makes me think, is Jesse playing mind games with his own team here so he can be like, look at how we're persecuted. We're always going to be underdogs. And like
us against the world.
Yes, like adding fuel to the fire. Is that beyond him?
That's not beyond him at all. He's playing chess, all right? Not checkers, okay? And so in the moment,
Canadian chess.
Yeah, of course. Listen, he's going to look for every single advantage that he possibly can. If there's one thing about Jesse that he is going to do, he's going to take a bullet for his team, for his players, and he's also going to find different ways to motivate them. Jesse tiptoes the line constantly between kind of what would be deemed appropriate behavior on the sideline and pushing the envelope. But listen, one thing you can't argue is that Jesse gets his players to respond to him, okay? And he will take all the criticism, he will protect his players, and I think that's why you see Canada coming into a different era with a ton of talent and the coach to back that talent and the coach to get the most out of that talent. But it could be a blessing and a curse. Doyle, as you sit there with your cat, I don't think that there's any way that Jesse is going to dial it back because that's just who he is. But there are times where I think he goes a little bit overboard and he needs to just take a little deep breath, Jesse, okay? It's going to be okay. Your players love you. Canada loves you. The U.S. Canadian men's national team.
U.S. Canadian national team loves you too. Who we got there, Doyle? Who's there?
This is Taquito.
Can we see Taquito?
Oh, I'll lift him up, but then he's going to start biting me in a second.
Okay. Oh,
he's like,
real
Jesse.
nice, Taquito.
Here you go.
Always nice when another ginger joins the show. You're welcome anytime.
He's very combative, like somebody else.
So we saw the Canadian national team put up 6 goals over Honduras earlier this week. Then they have Curacao. How many goals are we thinking in that one?
I mean,
we think we see a better or worse performance against Curacao?
I don't think they score 6 against Curacao.
Yeah. Curaçao's they're pretty actually compact through central midfield. They do a nice job of playing against the ball. I think Honduras were maybe a little bit overconfident. Curaçao's not going to be overconfident in this game. They're going to make it tough. And look, this is something that Canada haven't had to face in the past. Nobody was like, oh, God, is Canada coming? We have to play against the ball here because they're so dynamic going forward. It's the burden that this generation that has been so great, led by Taniolo O'Shea, that they're going to have to shoulder and learn how to win these games. And I'm pretty confident that they will.
Thank you so much to the chat, who's been so fun. Jonathan David, the best player in CONCACAF, 64% saying no, 35% saying yes. I wish we could give some write in your answers there, but we can't. Maybe we'll be able to one day. So if you want to get into the chat, you can. You just have to like and subscribe to our stream. So be sure to do that. Get in there, hit that like button. I also want to go back to the LAFC poll really quick. Do LAFC get the win today? 67% going with yes. There's some more numbers for you. The top 25 jersey oh my gosh. The U.S. Canadian national team, jersey sellers. Okay, Joe. The top 25 jersey sales released. And I want to take a look at that list. Some that we are no huge surprise here. Lionel Messi, Luis Suarez, Miguel Almiron, Chucky Lozano, Darlington Nagbe of Columbus getting that 5th spot. A little love for the veteran. Another veteran in Jordan Morris getting the 6th spot. The figure that is Zaha getting number 7. Another vet, heck yeah, for Diego Chara getting 8th place. Striker Patrick Agyemang in 9th. And Columbus's Diego Rossi. Who was your biggest surprise when you look at this top 10?
It's easily Darlington Nagbe for me. And I'm going to throw in Diego Chara as well. this is not because they're not excellent players, all-time great MLS players, but the longevity that they have had at their clubs. You would think that most of the fan base, whoever loves them as much as they do, would already have not just one, but multiple Nagbe and Chara jerseys. It is, I think, speaks to the love of the fan base, the love of the jersey, potentially, that Chara and Nagbe are still on lists like these, which you expect Messi and Suarez that kind of transcend the game, Miguel Almiron returning to Atlanta. None of those are surprising at all, but just the fact that you have two all-time great MLS players, but grizzled vets that have been at their clubs for as long as they have, a little bit surprising to me, Doyle.
Yeah, Jordan Morris as well. But I think the sort of common thread between Columbus, Portland, and Seattle is that these teams release good kits every single year.
They do.
Like, and that I think is part of it for MLS fans, for hardcore fans of these clubs. Like, they want to have the 2005 home kit or the 2024 third kit, and that keeps them up at the top every year. I was really heartened to see Patrick Agyemang there. We don't see a ton of young super draft guys win a job over a DP, keep the job, and play their way into the U.S. national team. He has been a problem solver for this Charlotte side, doing kind of a Marshawn Lynch thing, dragging that entire team down the field by himself at times. It's nice to see him get appreciated. I agree with you, Dax. Like, there's work he has to do. We saw some of that in the U.S. game last night. His movement off the ball has to be sharper and I think a little bit more front foot. But to see the love he's getting from those Charlotte fans, especially because he's a fellow Connecticut boy like me, does my heart
I knew you were
good.
going there.
Charlotte fan base, man, how impressive are they? It's not just Agyemang, it's Zaha on that list and Ashley Westwood. I mean, yeah. I love the fact that people are appreciating an older.
You just love the fact that it's a D-made.
I love it. Listen, Charlotte fan base, I see the vision. You guys see the game well, as do Columbus and Portland. I love it. Shout out to all the deep-lying midfielders getting some love.
Doyle, the fact that I flashed up there that Patrick Agyemang made the top 10, do you forgive me for saying that anybody in Seattle wants an Antoine Griezmann signature? Because you came after me for that a little bit. And yeah, but Agyemang now, that's a nice nod to the real ones, to the future, to the kids.
That's a good point, Jill. I'll think about it. Now? We'll see. Yeah, we'll see.
Okay. So if you guys, if you had to buy, never mind. We're going to move on. I don't want to know what you'd buy. I want to know what you own. What's the craziest, most obscure jersey that you got in that old treasure trove? Dax, I have seen you give the good people of Instagram a tour of that man cave of yours. So I know you've got some good ones, but which one's
former man cave? I wish I still had it. Shout out to my old house in Chicago that had an unbelievable basement. Unfortunately, producer Phelan, I'm sorry I couldn't get you the video to show everyone. Maybe I'll re-up that on my social media. I've got some absolutely fantastic jerseys in my collection. I know Tyler Adams has recently come out and said, I don't trade jerseys. I don't care about that. Like, I don't care about anything. I love trading jerseys. I don't know if I'm just like this little schoolboy in a candy shop who just is absolutely loving being able to play at the level that I got to play at. But I love exchanging jerseys with legends. So I got a couple from MLS that I'm really proud of. I mean, I got a Carlos Bocanegra Chivas USA jersey, which I'm going to put in a time capsule. I feel like that one's pretty rare. An Inter Milan Esteban Cambiaso jersey. And for all the millennials out there who might have watched, soccer before the 2000s, Cambiaso, what a player. He's the type of player, Doyle, where when you watch him play, you do this. You know what I mean? Tremendous technique. But my favorite jersey and the most obscure jersey I have is a Raul New York Cosmos jersey. We played them with the New York Red Bulls in the U.S. Open Cup. That is a prized possession of mine. Absolutely loved Raul in his time at the Cosmos. Iconic player at an iconic club. What's not to love?
Doyle, you got any jerseys?
No, I don't collect jerseys. I think my favorite piece of MLS memorabilia is this guy.
I met him. I met him in the shower one time. So, what are you doing?
DC United. So DC United, before they moved into a beautiful new stadium, played at RFK Stadium, and it was infested by raccoons. Dax's best friends, apparently. And the credit to the DC United PR and comm staff. They decided to make a few stuffed raccoons to give
When
away.
did they make that?
I think it was before the 2015 Super Draft. So
That's
I've had
why
this
I
thing
missed
for I've had this thing for a decade. Dax, did you really meet the DC United raccoons in the locker room? Is that something that happened?
Not in the locker room, not in the shower. I'm exaggerating slightly for the bit. But yeah, I did see one walking into the stadium one time, and it was an alarming moment because it wasn't scared of me at all.
No.
It just kind of was like looking up, like, "Yo, this is my turf," and I was just like, "Whoa, okay, I got it." Respect.
And then they went north to Philadelphia, or Chester, shall I say?
Raquinho.
That's what we needed. That's what should be the next stuffed animal, and we should get it signed by Kalen Carr.
That's a good idea. A future edition of This Is MLS, I'm sure.
I would love that. I'm trying to think about mine. I don't. Well, maybe I'd go with my nice little Jillian number 9 here from Inter Miami.
I was gonna say, big Leo Campana fan, huh?
Big
number 9, Jillian Sakovits up top.
I got this like a few months before Messi signed. It's from the beginning of that season, and had I known that Messi was coming, I mean, I guess we all had like a little inkling. I would have gotten a Messi jersey because our discounts don't work on those, and those are expensive.
What's the one next to it?
Well,
gotta be Minnesota.
No, it's my name. It's Jillian Sakovits. You get it?
There you go.
Yeah, Jillian Sakovits. Yes. Just fully spelled out. All right,
Jill, you got a whole shrine to yourself in that room. My goodness.
Hey, so Dax can have a man cave and I can't have a shrine in my basement to me?
I got a Matt Doyle bobblehead right here. Shout out Brendan Hannon. This was a 2013 from the Fire.
That's an Andrew Gutman bobblehead. You will not convince me otherwise.
Dax, how many bobbleheads did they have? Like how many Dax McCarty bobblehead nights were there?
I was the recipient of 2 bobblehead nights. Very
you have them?
Jill, I just moved. They're in storage somewhere.
I know.
We would be on this show for 7 more hours. Nobody needs that.
Correct. Okay. Well, then I guess on that note, I don't have any bobbleheads, but I do have this little guy. I guess on that note then, happy Friday, everybody. We will say goodbye on This Is MLS, and we will see all of you next week. And if you haven't already, like and subscribe to this MLS channel. And for all other shows, please get in the chat.